Memorial service, but I kind of crammed the idea that we should honor Ray into a service, and this is it. So, uh, Alan would be here, but they're away. So, Ray was, just a few words about him. Many of you don't know Ray MacIntire. Many of you do. Um, he he's a very compassionate person. Had grown up with hearing issues and really had like a lot of punishing hearing treatments when we didn't really know what we were doing. Like got his eardrum smashed a number of times, and raised loved language, and just always had a real sense of support for the underdog, and great sense of his history, sort of Scottish history, and just just a kind of just like a good citizen. I mean, Ray was. Once you got him talking, you couldn't stop him. That was another quality about Ray. But he always had kind things to say, and he was just a very sweet man. And I met him. His wife got Ray was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and then about 5 or 6 days later, his wife was diagnosed with cancer, and then so everyone's sort of attention went to Ray. And then she was diagnosed, and very short order, she had passed away, and he lived for another 8 or 9 years at least with pancreatic cancer, with most people, maybe 12. I mean, a long time, and that's a terrible cancer, as many of those out here know. And
I believe that the 2008 picture here was kind of, we thought Ray was going to pass soon.
He had more talking to do. He had more Gaelic words to explore and to instruct others on. And so, does anybody want to say a few words about Ray?
I met Ray in the...
Come on up.
I met Ray for the first time at a grieving group after Peter had died and his wife had died. And I was stunned that he had pancreatic cancer, which is what my husband had died from, and that Ray lived on, and Peter only lived 17 months. It was just remarkable. So, and then we found each other at church. So, yeah. And he always tried his French out on me.
Michael, you want to say a few words? Sure.
I knew Ray through our mutual banjo connections. We would show up at the same banjo conventions, gravitate towards one another. And he'd call me up occasionally and talk to me about, all kinds of things, banjo-related things. Or he'd come to one of my concerts and then he'd call me up and he'd say, I got to talk to you a little bit about the history of the title of that piece that you played. So I got Ray's background on a number of pieces and input, and he started to divest his voluminous collection of music. So a lot of it ended up with me, and a lot of it we figured out where it might go. To various people or banjo clubs or whatnot, so that it got distributed and reused. About a week before he passed, he called me up to say goodbye, and I was floored. It just it hit me that he was one of a handful of people who have called me up to say goodbye before they passed. So. And the conversation was the same as the conversations we've had before. Banjo, my steps, and did I ever get my steps repaired? A little bit of history, et cetera, et cetera. So, anyways, Ray.
I can't help not remember his 90th birthday. Was anybody here at his 90th birthday party? You breezed in and out. It was Wendell Town Hall. It was packed. There were beautiful women singing to him in Gaelic. It was the most wonderful, joyous party, there were so many people there that cared about him. So that's just a really fun memory of Ray. And, you know, I never could answer any of his questions.
Ray's son Al sent a few words this morning. He says, we both appreciate your efforts to recognize Ray's passage, along with so many folks he became quite endeared to. And let's see, he wanted us to remember that both he labored in a Boston Communicable Disease Hospital back in the 50s to help ease the suffering of polio patients in the midst of the 1950s epidemic. And he wanted to bring attention to all the professionals that have sacrificed nearly everything in their compassionate concerns for helping people. And also thank you to Michael and Steve for recognizing the joys and concerns of a truly individual UU. All right.
Yeah, Ray. Ray was probably a little bit on the spectrum, and went to a UU church and found the pamphlet, like the little cards that explained us the 7 principles, and came home and kind of digested and decided in that moment that he'd be a UU, and he was really for the rest of his days. He started in Framingham, was a member of that church for 35, 40 years, important part of the church, and then came out here, and I think he was with me in Northfield for a minute or two before he came to Bernardston. He's probably explored All Souls too. Please join me in this responsive reading. I wrote, I'm the minister, if you haven't noticed, and you guys are the gathered, for those who are a little slower out there. None of us. When we meet sensitive men with empathy for the underdog, when we encounter people who live with a loyalty to their lifelong principles and step forward to befriend people with love and an open heart, when we see people mindful of the various languages and cultures of the world, when we meet the people in life who live out our call to honor the inherent worth and dignity in others, and now Michael's going to play Precious Memories in tribute to Ray. It almost feels like that's from the Brother, Where Art Thou soundtrack.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, it's great. So it's time for our offertory. It wouldn't be church without an offertory. And it reminds me of a little story where long-term bachelor marries this woman, and he's nervous because he has some resources and she's younger, and he says, "Honey, sometimes I wonder if my uncle hadn't given me a lot of money, whether you would have married me." And she says, "Sweetie, don't worry. I would have married you no matter who gave you a lot of money." And in that spirit, I invite you to give generously to the life and work of the Bernardston Congregational Unitarian Church.